If someone had told me months ago that a simple office conversation would turn into the biggest conflict in our family, I probably would have laughed. Because from the outside, it seemed harmless, normal, maybe even sweet. But some stories don't start with a scandal. They start with small details we choose to ignore. My sister had always been very reserved, the kind of person who doesn't talk about her personal life on Sunday lunch, who answers, "I'm fine," when she clearly isn't. And maybe that's why it took me so long to realize that something was different. It all started when she changed jobs. At first, it was just excitement, a new position, a new environment, new people. She came home tired, but with a different spark in her eyes. She talked about meetings, challenges, funny coworkers, nothing unusual, until one name started coming up more often than the others. She said his name as if she didn't want to give it importance, slipped it into sentences, quickly changed the subject, but she repeated it, always repeated it. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, who hasn't had a closer coworker? Someone you talk to more, exchange ideas with, complain about the boss. But time passed, and that name was still there. She started getting more dressed up for work. Not in an exaggerated way, but differently. Clothes chosen more carefully, perfume she used to save for special occasions, and her phone never left her hand. Messages before going to sleep, messages when she woke up, quiet little laughs on the couch. When I asked who she was talking to, the answer came too quickly. People from work. And then came the first thing that truly bothered me. She started avoiding talking about her personal life around us. Before, she shared everything. If she was tired, happy, if something had gone wrong. Now, when we asked how her day had been, she answered with short sentences. It felt like she was keeping something just for herself. Until one day, by accident, I saw a notification on her phone. It wasn't the content of the message, it was just the name, the same one she'd been repeating for weeks, but this time there was a heart next to it. I didn't say anything, I pretended I hadn't seen it, but in that moment something became clear to me. This wasn't just friendship. And then came the part that turned everything into a real problem. He wasn't single. I found out almost by chance during a casual conversation. We were having dinner when someone commented about relationships at work, and my sister suddenly became tense. She changed the subject, knocked over her glass, stood up from the table, all at once. Later, when it was just the two of us, I asked, without accusing, without pressure, "Does he have someone?" I said. Her silence answered before her words. She took a deep breath, looked away, and said something that still echoes in my head to this day. "It's complicated." That was the first time I felt afraid of where this could lead. Because when someone starts justifying feelings with "it's complicated," they've usually already crossed an invisible line. And what scared me wasn't just the romance itself. It was how different my sister seemed from the person she had always been. She started blaming herself, said she hadn't planned any of it, that she didn't want to hurt anyone, that things just happened. But at the same time, she couldn't walk away. And I could see it in her eyes, a dangerous mix of passion and conflict. The look of someone who knows they're stepping into something wrong, but can't stop. The problem is that stories like this never stay hidden for long. And what seemed like just an unresolved feeling would soon involve far more people than she ever imagined, including me. After that conversation, nothing was the same between us. My sister tried to act normal, but I knew every one of her silences, every pause that lasted too long, every rehearsed answer. It was as if she were living two versions of her life, the one she showed to the family and the one happening in secret between deleted messages and quick meetings during work breaks. She said everything was under control, but it wasn't. The first real sign that things had gone too far came one night when she came home crying. It wasn't loud or dramatic, it was quiet, restrained, as if she were trying not to bother anyone. But I heard it. I sat beside her on the couch and didn't ask anything. I waited, because sometimes silence is the push a person needs to speak. "I don't know what to do anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "I tried to walk away, but he won't let me, and I can't either." That's when I realized something that worried me even more. It wasn't just passion. It was emotional dependence. She told me they started having lunch together every day, then staying out later after work. Conversations that used to be professional turned into confessions. He complained about his relationship, said he felt trapped, unhappy, misunderstood. And my sister listened. She gave advice. She comforted him. She became the one who understood, the one who welcomed him. Until at some point she stopped being just support and became a refuge. She knew it was wrong. She repeated that many times as if saying it out loud might lessen the guilt. But she also said she had never felt so connected to someone. "With him, I can be myself," she said. "He understands me in a way no one ever has." That sentence made my stomach twist because I knew what came next. Work began to feel the effects. She got anxious before meetings he attended, irritated when he talked to other people, sad when he pulled away, even for just a few days. Her productivity dropped. Coworkers started noticing, side glances, whispers in the hallway. And as always happens, someone noticed sooner than they expected. One day she came home pale, sat at the table, and stared at nothing. I asked what had happened. "HR called us in," she said, almost in a whisper. Nothing explicit, no direct accusations, but the warning was clear. Personal relationships at work could cause problems, conflicts of interest, complaints. She left the room shaking. He, on the other hand, seemed calmer, said everything would be fine, that no one had proof, that they just needed to be more discreet. And that's when I started feeling anger. Anger at him, because while my sister was falling apart inside, he seemed comfortable sitting on the fence. He didn't make decisions, didn't end his relationship, didn't walk away from her. He kept both lives running in parallel, as if that were sustainable. My sister began to live in waiting. Waiting for messages, waiting for vague promises, waiting for a future he always pushed to later, and every later hurt a little more. "He says he'll fix everything," she told me. "He just needs time." Time. That word became the perfect excuse to keep everything exactly the same. Meanwhile, her emotional health collapsed. She lost her appetite, slept poorly, cried in the shower so no one would hear, started blaming herself for things that weren't entirely her fault. Said maybe she wasn't enough, maybe she was asking for too much. I tried to warn her, tried to show her it wasn't fair, that she deserved someone whole, not pieces of someone divided. But when someone is too involved, advice sounds like an attack. "You don't understand," she said. "It's different when you feel it." And maybe she was right, but I understood one thing very clearly. This would end badly. The turning point came when his partner showed up at work. Not to make a scene, not to scream, but to pick him up. A quick kiss at the door, a polite smile to the coworkers. My sister saw everything. She told me she felt the ground disappear beneath her feet, that in that moment she realized how out of place she was in that story, how invisible. That day she left work early, said she was feeling sick, and for the first time she said something that froze me. "I think I destroyed my own life." I held her hand and told her there was still time to leave, still time to protect herself. But deep down I knew the hardest part was still coming. Because when unresolved feelings meet fear and exposure, someone always gets hurt. And the worst of all, it's not always just the people directly involved. After that day, my sister changed. It wasn't abrupt, not something everyone notices right away. It was subtle, but constant. She became quieter, more distant, as if she were always somewhere else. Sometimes, in the middle of a simple conversation, she drifted off and took too long to respond. I knew something was about to happen. And it didn't take long. Everything came out on an ordinary Friday, far too ordinary to carry the weight of what was coming. She came home earlier than usual, dropped her bag on the floor, and sat on the couch without saying a word. Her face was red, her eyes swollen. "She knows," my sister said before I could ask anything. My heart raced. His partner had found out everything, not through a forgotten message or a late-night call, but there's something even crueler. A coworker decided to warn her. No one ever officially admitted it, but rumors pointed to jealousy, resentment, or simply a desire to watch everything burn. The truth is that within days, what should have remained private became office gossip. My sister told me she was called into HR again. This time the atmosphere was different, more serious, colder. They talked about ethics, conduct, professional environment. No names, no direct accusations, but it was all too obvious to pretend otherwise. She left the room feeling judged for something no one fully understood. He was called in after, and that's when everything truly began to fall apart. When my sister tried to talk to him that night, she got no response, no messages, no calls. The silence that used to be rare now felt intentional. The next day, she insisted, said she needed to talk, that things had gone too far, that pretending was no longer possible. The reply was short and cold. Now is not a good time. That broke her in half, because for the first time it became clear that when things got difficult, he chose to protect himself. He didn't choose clarity, didn't choose accountability, he chose to hide. My sister began to wonder if any of it had been real, or if she had simply filled the empty spaces with hope. She spent days away from work, claiming health issues, and it wasn't a lie. She was truly unwell. Anxiety, crying spells, constant guilt. The family started to notice. Questions arose, worried looks, but she didn't have the strength to explain. I respected her silence, even knowing that sooner or later the truth would come out. And it did. At a Sunday lunch, someone mentioned rumors in the corporate environment. No names, nothing direct, but the mood shifted. My sister got up from the table, went to the bathroom, and took a long time to come back. When she returned, her eyes were full of tears. "They know," she whispered to me. "Everyone knows." In that moment, I understood that the greatest weight wasn't external judgment, it was internal. She felt wrong, small, ashamed, as if all the values she had built throughout her life had been erased by one choice. She finally decided to confront him. She arranged a meeting outside of work, far from everything. She wanted answers, clarity, to know if she had been nothing more than a convenient chapter. She came home late that night. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't say anything. She just went into her room and closed the door. The next day, she told me everything. He said he cared about her, said he never lied about his feelings, but said he couldn't abandon the life he had built, that everything was more complicated than it seemed, that she needed to understand. Understand. Always that word. But understand what? That she should accept being hidden? That she should settle for emotional crumbs while he kept everything intact? He asked that they continue as things were just until everything calmed down. And that was when something inside my sister finally broke. She realized that if she stayed, she would completely erase herself, that there was no room for her to grow in that relationship, only to get lost. Even so, leaving wasn't easy. She blocked his number and then unblocked it the next day, decided to walk away and then went back, an emotional back and forth that drained any attempt at healing. But the final blow was still coming. A few days later, she received an email from work. Subject: Team Restructuring. My stomach dropped when she showed it to me, because in that moment it became clear that this story wouldn't leave marks on her heart, but also on her professional life. The email looked far too simple to carry so much weight. Team Restructuring. Two words that completely changed the course of my sister's life. There were no direct accusations, no long explanations, just the information that she would be transferred to another department with new responsibilities, a new manager, and a completely different routine. In practice, it was a removal. Nothing official, nothing that could turn into a lawsuit, but enough to isolate her, away from him, away from the people who knew too much, away from where everything began. She read the email in silence, then slowly closed the laptop and stared at her hands, as if she no longer recognized her own story. "I lost everything," she said. "My peace, my job, and he didn't even have to choose." That sentence stayed with me, because it was true. He remained in the same department, the same position, the same life. His relationship, despite the damage, continued. Maybe patched up, maybe fragile, but still there. My sister, on the other hand, had to rebuild everything alone. In the first days in the new department, she came home exhausted. Not from the work itself, but from the emotional weight. Curious looks, conversations that stopped when she approached, that constant atmosphere of silent judgment. She felt marked. And that affects anyone. But little by little, something began to change. The forced distance did what she had never managed to do on her own. Cut the bond. The messages stopped. The meetings no longer happened. His name, which once appeared in every conversation, became a necessary silence. She began to see things more clearly. She realized how much she had shrunk herself to fit into the life of someone who never truly made space for her. How much she accepted waiting, justifying, understanding, while she was the one suffering the most. "I confused intensity with love," she told me one night, "and I paid a high price for it." Recovery wasn't quick. It wasn't pretty. There were relapses, difficult nights, guilt, shame. But there was also something new emerging: self-respect. She started therapy, went back to doing things she loved, reconnected with old friends, found herself again, the person she was before that story. And over time, the wound stopped bleeding. Today, when we talk about it, she no longer speaks with tears in her eyes. She speaks with maturity, with the awareness that she made bad choices, yes, but that those choices do not define who she is. She learned that hidden relationships demand too high a price, that vague promises don't build a future, and that no one should occupy a temporary place in someone else's life. This story didn't end with revenge or perfect justice. It ended with learning. And maybe that's what matters most. If you're listening to this and living something similar, understand this. When someone truly wants to be with you, there is no time, no complication, no bad moment that can stop them. What exists is decision. Don't accept being an option. Don't accept being a secret. Don't accept less than you deserve. Because in the end, the person who most needs to be at peace with your choices is you. If this story resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and watch the next video appearing on your screen now, because it connects deeply with everything we talked about here. Thank you for listening until the end. I'll see you in the next video.